from IBM, a research staff member, and also a principal investigator at MIT IBM lab. His research lies in the intersection of human-computer interaction and AI. And before joining IBM, he got his PhD at UC Irvine. He's now leading a group working on IBM Auto AI. And outside of that, he's also interested in conversational AI and the clinical support system. And Dr. Dakuo Wang has been recognized by ACM as a distinguished speaker. So let's expect a distinguished lecture today. Thanks. Without further ado, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's really my honor to come here to UCLA. It has been 5 years since the last time I visited SoCal, so really nice to be back. My name is Dakuo Wang. I'm currently a research staff member at IBM Research based in Cambridge, Massachusetts. I'm also jointly affiliated with Northeastern University as an adjunct professor. So here in this talk, I'm going to use the next 50 minutes to talk about human-centered AI. So, and then I'll use this data science as a case study to illustrate how we can approach human-centered AI system building and research. So first, what is human-centered AI, right? My background is HCI, human-computer interaction. So I specialize in studying how humans use computers and how we should design computers to be more useful by human. So as you can see, for human-centered AI, to the left, we have a human, and then to the right, we have AI system. And for HCI researchers or user study researchers, the research method is user research. Basically, we prompt people, we go to their real work scenario, we ask what they do, how they do their work, what's the challenge, what's the
I think the volume is still gone out again. So we can't hear you. The audio is out.
Unmute. Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah. This sounds better. Yes.
Hello. Can online audience?
We can hear you now.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm using my laptop's microphone so that, yeah. So let me continue. So this human-centered AI research is trying to build AI systems that can be used by human. And then the whole endpoint is trying to augment the human skills, right? But we also see another line of research where people are saying, in order to advance AI algorithm to better prioritize the AI research agenda, we also need to leverage on human knowledge, human insight, so that from understanding human behavior, we can contribute new data set, new knowledge, and new tasks, new applications for advancing AI algorithm. So with that, in this loop, right, this is how today's human-centered AI researchers, when they approach this research topic from both AI side and the HCI side, how they define. And now, in this talk, I would like to use data science, this application domain, to illustrate how what kind of research we can do and how we can approach it. So very quickly, what is data science? I know we are, computer science department seminar, so I don't want to spend much effort in explaining the simple basic definitions. And also there are many definitions talking about this newly emerged topic, data science, right? But generally speaking, data science is to digest various types of modality data and then go through machine learning or algorithm building process to extract the actionable insights from this data. And then later, these actionable insights can be used to support real human decision making. So that's very rough but general definition, right? And then this is not something new, right? From the traditional statistical time, right, where we can build those regression models, we can build those classification or clustering algorithms, trying to predict a value into the future, or trying to classify an unknown data point into either one of those two categories. What's new today is just the algorithms are becoming more and more advanced, right? There's a convolutional neural network, there's a transformer-based, there's a pre-trained large language models, there's graph-based neural network models. But all these techniques are iterating and popping out. But the fundamental data science goal and the methodology are still there. It's trying to understand data and generate actionable insights. Thank you. And so here, we as a human computer interaction researcher, we always want to start by understanding human behavior, because as many of you may be known that whenever a HCI researcher or user researcher step into a new field, because we are not trained as expert in this field, we always need to spend effort to understand the user before we want to build something to support them, right? There are some bad designs or systems that you may have already used in your life, but the system designer or researcher, apparently they are not they're not really taking the user's pain points or the actual user into their design consideration. So that's a bad design. Okay, so we ask ourselves the first question, right? How do human data scientists work? Oh, thank you. Okay, give me one more. I'll mute this one. Better? Yes? Still hearing online participants? Okay, perfect. Yes, so the first question we ask ourselves and the research community is how do human data scientists work? As a matter of fact, back in 2016, 2017, there were not much work reporting how human data scientists work. Then we decided to conduct our own research. Along this line, we in the past 3 years, we have been publishing 6-7 papers targeting the different contexts, the different data science group, the different data science task, and then digesting how they are working, and trying to propose design insights based on our understanding, right? So as one example, so this is one very typical HCI user study where we recruited 22 data science workers from different backgrounds participating in different projects so that we can interview them each for 1 hour. And then we in the interview, we ask them, what can you share a notable experience? Can you share a most struggling experience with us? You know, what's that product about? Who were your collaborators? And why the product succeeded or why the product failed. From there, we can continue asking them follow-up questions. So this research method is very, very well known in social science, humanities study. It's called semi-structured interview. So you have a general scope that you want to prompt and ask, but then also you want to dive into some particular point to ask the participants to recall their experience. From there, you know, with more a broad kind of like user population, you can eventually gather some commonality or uniqueness based on this understanding. So the most interesting finding we have from this study is basically the paper title, right? To ask the right question or to find the right answer. So this is describing a very typical well-known tension between the data scientist and their non-technical team collaborators. So at the top, there's a very simplified linear workflow described by these participants or interviewees. They told us, oh, you need to collect data, you need to have the data set, clean the data set, and then you need to have a BMS research question. So BMS is a biomedical subject matter research question. So basically, it's a domain-specific research question. Right? You have that domain-specific research question, and then you need to redefine it into a data science question, so that can be solved by classification or regression or those kind of algorithms. And then you, of course, need to select the data science model, implement the algorithm, and evaluate the matrices, and then eventually deliver that to the decision-making process. Right? That's a very typical kind of data science workflow described top. But the tension between these two different participant group or between these two different teammates, right, are very typical. That the subject matter experts or these biomedical experts, they came in, ask a question. Oh, I want to understand something, and here's my data, right? They hand the question and the data set over to their data science colleagues. Their data science colleague look at the data, clean the data, define a particular research question, say, oh, I believe this is a regression problem. Let me try to use a regressor or some advanced algorithm to solve that. After 2 weeks, the data scientists come back, talk to the expert. So here is your result, right? And the subject matter experts, the problem owner, they look at the result, say, oh, wait, I think I asked the question wrong. I think given what you are showing me, right, we did some, we were not really meant to ask that question. So here's my updated research question. Can you help me to use the data to answer my new question? Once, twice, more than 3 times, then the data scientists will become mad, because they said, oh, why can't you, biomedical experts, biomedical researchers, make up your mind and give us the right question so that we can build a clean model, solve your research question, right? Instead of wasting us like 2 months of time just to exploring the data, keep wasting our time to answer your wrong question. And then the biomedical experts, they are also feeling very angry, because that's a typical process of scientific discovery. You start with a question, and then you go to prompt your data. After a while, you realize, okay, so my question was wrong. I need to ask a better version of the question. So the scientific discovery is not really to find the right answer for a question, but rather to try to ask the best question using all the intermediate answers. So this tension is very common, not only exists in that work, but in many other works. So from there, we're thinking, oh, if that's the typical process, right? Can we use AI to actually help those domain experts, non-technical domain experts, to help them quickly build some basic, naive machine learning models to help them go through that exploratory process instead of wasting their human data science collaborators' time. So that's one of the motivation, right? Another paper, very quickly, is a work that we published last year at CSW. So in this work, we're targeting a collaboration just among data scientists themselves. This is not data science working with non-technical collaborators anymore. It's just data science themselves, right? Here, what we adopted this survey, online survey kind of like a research method. We sent out hundreds of survey questionnaires to IBM's data science and machine learning engineer. So these target the audience. And then after we collect hundreds of these survey responses back, we can generate this table and the distribution and the statistics to describe how these data science communities, professional data science communities, are thinking or believing in these questions, right? So for example, they all believe that, most of them believe that their code will be reused, right? So the average is 78.8. And also when you ask them, okay, so in order to get prepared so that your code will be reused by others, do you add those inline comments or human readable descriptions, documentation to support that reuse? And they will say, of course, right? They say, like on average, somewhere like 90%. They say, of course, we document our code very well. But if you look at some literature have been reported in this field, right? They are using quantitative method, which in this particular work, our colleague collected 2 million notebooks, data science or machine learning notebooks from GitHub, 2 million, and then they calculate this kind of statistic, and clearly you can see almost 30% of those notebooks have no human readable code, human readable documentation in them, which means these users or these data scientists, and they did not document their code at all, right? So what we are observing, of course, you can say that professional data scientists or machine engineers, they have a better habit in their programming skill set, right? And in comparison to these maybe citizen data scientists or machine learners who submit or commit their code to GitHub, but still this is astonishing, right? When people report what they believe or what they do is sometimes different from what they actually do. So this is also very typical when you study user, approach user, right? So because of that, right, that also triggers us or motivates us to say, oh, can we actually build AI system to help people, right? Why don't we give this burden to AI so that humans do not need to spend much effort in the code documentation process, right? Very, very simple and naive thinking. We'll see how we approach that later. One last example I want to give in this data science user study section, which is this time we study different contexts. This is non-professional organizations, NPOs. They do not have their in-house technical supporters or data scientists. They have to leverage the broad volunteer community so that they can host these so-called civic data hackathon. So it's a hackathon, right? 48 hours, these NPOs provide their own data and then ask data scientists or students or volunteers to help them identify the insights from this data. This, a larger scale or larger version of this is Kaggle, the Kaggle computation, right? Which is an online version of this type of data hackathon. What we found in this is, again, the tension between collaborators, the tension among data science community themselves, the tension between data science community and the problem owner, the stakeholder community, right? And as a matter of fact, what we found here is there has to be a dedicated team, what we call, well, this is a social science concept called the knowledge broker, right? So this dedicated team has to translate language that data scientists use to the language that the normal human being use, and then translate the normal human being defined problem to a data science problem, because for this data science, they may not have the knowledge or skill to actually define those problems, right? So here, the client team serves as this broker's role to actually mitigate this collaboration. So that's a key success, a key factor lead to a success team collaboration versus a failed team. Okay, so you see a timeline view right at the top from left to right. Preparing the data, creating actionable analytics, delivering those results, right? So this is slightly different, but still simplified data science workflow that we have observed. And then along with this workflow, the brokers has to do various tasks like translating the language the two parties are using, right? Or coordinating, or even align the different expectations and their user requirements. So all along that, right? So in summary, among using all our papers as well as other committee members' papers, we identified everyone is reporting this workflow, data science workflow. So this is something that back then in 2018, 2019, we don't have a consensus, but now we do, right? We know that from a holistic view, that from the top, this is a full loop, and of course it's also iterative. So from the top, we need to gather requirements, define a problem, and then collect data, clean data, do all those feature engineering, model building, training, part of technical work. After that, there's also a huge multiple steps before the data science insight can be actually used in the decision-making process, such as model deployment or model refinement, right, post-deployment, and also then decision-making and optimization. So using this holistic data science lifecycle view, it can help us to identify where are the places that people need the most help, and what are today's AI technology or data science technology that are lacking. Okay. Also, all the papers are talking about all these different teams, stakeholders, how they collaborate, what's the tension, where the collaboration breaks, right? All those, right? So in summary, this is 3 bullet point summary is what I just described in the previous 2 slides. It's a highly interactive, multi-stage process, multiple personas, they need to collaborate with each other. And some of those works are highly repetitive and can be automated by AI solution. With that, we ask ourselves, our team inside IBM Research, what if we can build a human-centered AI system to automate some of those data science tasks so that the non-technical user can actually leverage AI to help them look into their data and maybe even save their data science collaborators lots of time. Secondly, what if we can have a human-centered AI system to support code sharing, reusing among data science community themselves? Right? We all know today's NLP models are very capable of doing many of these things. What if we can borrow some of those techniques here? Third, what if we can build a human-centered AI system as the knowledge broker, the broker that we mentioned earlier, right? To directly facilitate the communication between data scientists and the subject matter expert. So this is actually a work we just finished and submitted to CHI 2022. So very quickly, how do we build a human-centered AI system to support data science team? We have a series of papers again in this just in this system building genre of the research work. Our idea was so simple and naive. We thought, oh, today's AutoML, automated machine learning, AutoML techniques are so powerful. Why don't we just wrap it with a user interface and then give it to the user, right? Today's NLP techniques are very useful. Why don't we just wrap it and put it up with a code kind of documentation or code IDE to wrap it for user? It's not that simple. And we have many failure experience. Let's take a look at this paper. There's a transaction for Kai paper 2022. So in this work, we are primarily targeting this model presentation and the stakeholder verification stage. That's why, as I know, this holistic view is very important, useful for us to navigate through this data science lifecycle, right? So very quickly, a flashback. We have seen this chart earlier. Data scientists believe code need to be reused more, and they are doing very good in their code documentation. But the GitHub analysis is not really the case, right? So problem is simple, right? And now we want to build a human-centered AI system to support these data scientists to document their code. And we want to leverage existing state-of-the-art NLP models to do that. This is Jupyter Notebook. This is the most commonly used platform by or IDE by data scientists and machine learning engineers when they write their code. As you can see, in comparison to some other IDEs like VS Code or Eclipse, right? So this allows you to put your code, this is section B, code, and the result or visualization chart C, and also the documentation in A section, all in one narrative. So this narrative called a computational narrative, right? It's very well received feature by the data science community because this helps their exploration nature of data science. They just want to write a small piece of code, see how the data looks like, and then try to implement a small function and then see what it shows, right? This works perfectly. But when we look at the existing natural language NLP kind of like literature and methods trying to do this code documentation task for data science code primarily existing in notebooks, right? We encounter some challenges. So to the left, this is Java, right? This is a Java source code. And then as you can see, we looked at various works back in 2020. As you can see, many of those works, or nearly all of those works, they were not targeting the data science or machine learning code in the Jupyter Notebook kind of concept format. The primary training data are collected from Stack Overflow. So in Stack Overflow, it's always a very clean, structured function there. And then there's a short description to describe what that function is. That's how when we write code, we add our comments. But in Jupyter Notebook, it's totally different, right? The example I gave you earlier, right? It has those documentation not only to show what this particular function does, but also why I'm writing this function, and also what this really this plot really means. So all those things are blended together, right? Also in Jupyter Notebook data, what we found is multiple code cells are connected to each other, as you can see to the right. Right? This is a typical notebook code cell structure. 4 code cells connect to each other. They have only one markdown, kind of like at the top, at the very top. I'm not showing here, but later I'll show you at the very top. And then it's no longer a particular function and then need comments, but rather a logical unit that the data scientists believe I should add a trunk of documentation. So existing NLP models cannot deal with this multiple code snippets together, cannot deal with this logical unit rather than a functional unit, right? And then we decided to build our own AI algorithm, right? So with all those tools we have, why don't we just have our own algorithm targeting this particular domain? So the primary challenge we have is this is a new task actually to targeting documentation for machine learning and data science code, and we do not have training data, and we suspect that's also the primary reason why the existing the papers are not really targeting this particular use case. So we decided to go back to look at how how human data scientists are doing this task, where we can find a high quality labeled data set to support our training, right? We look at Kaggle challenge. So for the ones who are not familiar with Kaggle challenge, on Kaggle, it's a large scale online data hackathon. So anyone, but mostly companies and institutions, they share their data to this online platform. And then they gave a clear question. They're saying like, can you help me to predict my supermarket's next season revenue using this data, right? And then anyone, students, data science practitioners, right? They can come in, download the data, write their own code in a Jupyter Notebook format, and then submit that Jupyter Notebook to Kaggle computation. From this Kaggle challenge community, it's very nice. They have this voting mechanism. So we suspect that, we hypothesize that this voting number may indicate not only the performance of the final model, but also the readability, the quality of this whole notebook. So with that hypothesis, we decided to collect our own data set from this Kaggle computation platform. We reported in this paper, firstly, we collected 10,000 notebooks, and then randomly sampled 1% of those 10,000 notebooks, and then replicated what the other researchers have been doing with the 2 million notebook they collected from GitHub. To the right, this blue plots, they are the 2 million notebook results that we saw from the previous paper. To the left, these red colored plots, they are the statistics from the highly voted notebooks that we collected from Kaggle. You can see clearly, right? So the charts, the plots looks much nicer. It's more of a normal distribution. And we, if you look at this words of markdown, kind of like a dimension, right? We do not have those long line of zero markdown, zero words, kind of like notebooks in comparison to the 2 million GitHub one. With this analysis and plus many other things, for example, like this one, content analysis, we actually recruited people, coder, to look at the content of each of those markdown cells. And then from coding 6,000 or 7,000 those markdown cells, we identify what are these markdown cells are describing, right? At the very top, as you can see, almost 90% of those markdown cells are indeed similar to the Java code, kind of like talking about what this following code is doing. It's more like a description of the function or description of the purpose. But also there are more than 30% of those markdown cells. No, they are not mutually exclusive, as you can imagine. Right? Almost 30% of those markdown cells, they are actually talking about something that you cannot really learn from the code. For example, interpreting the plot, the result or the plot, right? Or introducing some background knowledge about this particular data set. Or the author of the notebook is explaining why am I doing this? Why am I using this function or this algorithm instead of that function or that machine learning model, right? So this tells us, right, when we train the model, probably we should not use all of those notebooks markdown cells as as training data, right? Because some of them clearly they are not really mapping to the code, right? It also tells us if we indeed want to build a system to support the data scientists to do their notebook documentation, we probably should have this mixed method, right? So with those insights and findings, we constructed our own training data set, and then we also open source this training data set with the community. So as you can see from this data set, it has 2,000, almost 2,500 notebooks, but the actual training is happening at the code summary pair level. So at that level, we have 28,000 code documentation pairs, right? In each pair, there may be one code cell, there may be multiple code cells, but there's always only one documentation, right? And with that, we can finally go back to the right side of this circle, which is to design our new model and train this AI algorithm. So the result is also reported in this paper, YAMLP 21 finding, which we'll present, I think, next month. So very simply put, it has 4 steps of our training, right? First, we extract the text and the code pair from the notebook. Then we generate an AST tree to describe the code. So the AST tree is, as you can see here, is a data equals pd.getDummy data, right? And then we can, at the very high level, we can see the data is a node and the root is this equal, right? And then to the right is a function call. So that's a tree structure describing this single sentence like a code sequence, right? And then AST tree can be described in this node list as well as age dictionary. And then we can build our own model, right, to particularly fit this data structure of this notebook data structure to complete this task. In particular, this is how our model looks like. So to the left, right, to the left, from bottom up to up to the top, right? This is the input and then the output. So we have 3 inputs: a code sequence, code AST structure with nodes, a code AST structure with the edge, and then we have the documentation token sequence from 0 to t-1. We want to predict the documentation token at the moment t, right? And then we use the encoder decoder model structure, but the unique contribution of our model is this HA-conv-GAN structure, right? And it's zoomed in to the right, this red area, right? So because we observed there could be multiple code cells next to each other, but share the same markdown cell, the same documentation, right? We decided to define these 4 different but parallel unions that can take the code cell input with up to 4 code cells into it. And then we have this hierarchical attention structure, right? Both at low level attention and high level attention to deal with this, to take into consideration, not only the code sequence can contribute to the final documentation, but also the sequence of the code cell, right? So the cell itself can also contribute to the final documentation sequence prediction, right? And then after that, we have another AST attention so that we can combine the code sequence embedding with the the AST structure embedding, and then to have a better prediction result of this documentation generation task. So here are some qualitative results. For example, to the left, this is the example that we have seen earlier in the previous slides, right? So it has 4 code cells next to each other. Ground truth is the one that we collected from Kaggle computation. So that's the one that the human data scientists used. And then our model, it has a very good predicting result, right? And then we also have two baselines, code-to-SIG and graph-to-SIG, right? And then the last one is T5 small. So T5 was quite new back then, but we also tried it out to see what the performance would be if we just use a pre-trained longer model, right? And there are two more examples to the right. You can see how our result is indeed beating the baseline model, the code-to-SIG or graph-to-SIG models, which have been trained and then trained with the large-scale Java and C code, and then fine-tuned it in our Python code. And then we run various ablation studies by taking out only the high-level attention, or taking out the uniform attention, or taking out both the high level and the low level attention, aka the whole hierarchical attention component. And then we can see each of those components contribute how much into the final performance of this model. Right. And in addition, we also run some human user evaluation with the results. So the second to the left line is our model. We ask human coders to look at the code and also the documentation, and then read them along these three different dimensions: correctness, informativeness, and readability. And then apparently our model is not as good as the ground truth yet, but it's already along all the three dimensions is already above 0. So the rating is from -2 to +2. So above 0 means it's already acceptable quality, and also it's always beating the other two baseline models. This is the attention mechanism visualization. Vertically is the 4 cells, right? Horizontally is the token sequence. So this is the visualization just for this example that we have seen earlier. From this attention visualization, you can see what it shows is basically the second co-cell and the second and the third token contribute the most into this particular prediction. And you're also having it. Okay. And looking at this example is define and model and then XY. So this is the place where contribute the most to generate this implementing neural network documentation, which makes sense. Okay. Now we finally have our model, right? We have our EMLP paper published, but it's not the end. It's not the end for this human-centered AI research. We need to present this work. Our end goal is to have the system so that user can actually use it, right? So we still need to continue our research endeavor. So here we can finally start the building of the human-centered AI system so that we can support our target user. It's reported in this, again, reporting this transactional Kai paper. We don't want to interrupt human data scientists' existing coding practice or workflow. So we decided to build a very small and non-intrusive notebook plugin to connect with our model, trained model, and the whole system backend. So here, as you can see, when users start writing their code in a notebook, they will see this small orange light bulb, right? And only if the user are interested in using the system, they can move their mouse, hover on top of this small light bulb. And then we can send, by that time we already send the code sequence to our deployed model backend. And then the model backend can return 3 different suggestions. So the first suggestion is always the HA model rendered result. It's a deep learning based approach, right? The second one and the third one are actually not machine learning based approach. So the second one is what we did is basically we use a very simple rule. We extract the first line of this code cell and then identify the function. For example, this function is read underscore CSV. We send that function, first function in the first line, to the official API documentation, and then extract the first sentence from the official API documentation and then put it here, right? And then the last one, which is simply a prompt, a half sentence starting like the table, there's a table here, the table shows blah, blah, blah. So if user like one of those documentation suggestion, they simply click on it, it will render a new markdown cell at the appropriate place, and the user can continue editing or just simply using what we provide them, right? So why we have these three different approaches, again, because from our content analysis, we know that there are particular types of markdown cells cannot be handled by AI generation. They're totally irrelevant to the code. Right? So this is a summary chart or a system structure of how we combined these three different approaches together. So this is actually the first way, I would say, first method of implementing a human-centered AI system. It's a hybrid system with both human-crafted rules and AI learning-based approaches. Right? And yeah, so with this approach, we have the system, and now we need to know whether user like it or not, right? Whether this is actually helping user to improve their work performance, efficiency, or the quality. So if you're interested in what are the other human-centered AI system implementation methods, we have a few other papers talking about human-in-the-loop AI system, user recommended as AI optimization constraints, or neurosymbolic modeling ways of implementation. So these all these four methods you can decide or choose to use when you implement the human-centered AI system for different user scenarios. Okay. Yeah. So in order to evaluate the system that we build to make sure that it indeed incorporates the human-centered design value, so that the user can actually use it, we again recruit 24 data scientists, and this time we gave them a very simple task, right? So here's a notebook. Here's a notebook with only code. Now try to use your best capability to add documentation for this notebook. You don't need to write code. You just need to write the documentations. Yeah, right. And then we designed as a within subject user study. So within subject is a experimental study method where you ask the same participant try two or multiple conditions. And in order to maintain the validity, you need to randomize the order. So some, like participant A may try the control condition first. Participant B may try the experiment condition first, and then you can calculate the average, the various average performance, time, task completion time, and also their own rating of their final result. Right. So from these various metrics that we collected, as you can see, our system, the experiment condition, our system can significantly reduce the task completion time, meaning user using the system can finish the task much faster. And also their self-rated satisfaction with the final notebook artifact is also higher when they use the system, right? So these are the t-test results with a significant p-value less than or equal to 0.05. And but we don't see obvious difference as of number. It's not like the participants use our system that can produce more of those documentations or less documentation, which indicates that the participants are actually adding documentation mostly using their logical reasoning or sensing. They only add the documentation at the place that they believe should be added, Okay. One very interesting and striking finding from our result is this human and AI. So the AI system, we name it as a Themisto, right? Which is a satellite to Jupiter. So what we found very interesting is some of those markdown cells, human directly take the AI suggestion. Some of the markdown cells, human do not like the AI suggestion, so they write their own. But also there's 41% of those added markdown cells. They are co-created by human and AI, meaning AI makes a suggestion and human makes some changes on top of it, or human may combine 2 or 3 different approaches for one single code cell, right? And if we look at those co-created markdown cells, it's actually the quality. These are external readers reading, right? The quality is actually better than either AI or human do it alone, right? And we conducted a follow-up interview study to ask people, right? Ask people their general experience with our system. We did not, really ask them this particular thing, like, what do you think? Why you modified our AI suggestion? What do you think about this joint AI human joint kind of like a creation, right? But these are just some codes that the participants they reported themselves. And they're saying, the plugin or this AI system can help me to remember add those things. I was not lazy. It's just I sometimes forgot to add those things, right? And also after it makes some suggestion, I look at the back. I said, okay, let me add a few more words to make it a higher quality. So, this is one example, right? To quickly give you an overview of, for one of those experiment notebook to the left, how the source code looks like, and what's the deep learning based approach generated the documentations, what's the query based approach retrieved those documentations, prompt based half sentence there, and then P2, participant 2's final creation of those notebook documentation. So with that, it's actually come to the final slides of my presentation. We're building AI system not because we want to, not simply because we want to compete with existing state-of-art AI systems, right? Not because we want to illustrate that we can always do one algorithm better than another research team. We're building AI algorithm and system because we want to make it serve people, right? To help people with some of their real tasks. And human AI collaboration, I argue, right, is the ultimate goal for us to research human-centered AI system and implement the human-centered AI system. The human AI collaboration here, as you can also observe from our system, our projects, it doesn't need to have a human-ish face. It doesn't need to have an avatar. It doesn't need to have a conversational kind of interaction mechanism, right? It's the design principle. It's the end goal. As long as your AI system is designed and built with the consideration of supporting people, helping people with their own tasks, and through various evaluation, user evaluation tasks, is indeed helping those human beings, your target authors, your target users. That's a collaborating system, AI system. With that, I want to give you a final look at this chart and remember it. And then thank you for your time in pursuing my talk. Thank you.
Any questions from the audience?
I would ask connection involved that we were that given documentation like generated. So I know like there are some models that being deployed like Copilot, and I don't know connection between this model and like the Copilot. Is help humans to automatically generate code from documentation?
Yes. Oh, that's a very good question. So let me. Yes, yeah. Let me repeat the question. So the question we got from the audience, currently what we are presenting in our system is generating documentation with code sequence as a given input. There are some existing work to the reverse direction, which is giving human readable kind of description or command, and then the AI system can generate the code sequence, right? Executable code sequence. So yeah, so when we were doing this study and in our post-experience user interview, some users were actually asking exactly the same question. They said, "Oh, I'm actually suspect that today's NLP algorithm can actually help us to generate those code." Right. So I've seen some of those papers, and I'm also very excited to see those breakthroughs. And I actually believe it's indeed doable, achievable, and also useful if the system or the presentation of those code, right, system is actually designed with a human, centered design perspective in it. But I have not seen any kind of like a report saying such system have been deployed, for example, in Amazon or IBM or Google yet, right? So I suspect, as we have shown in our work, right, AI cannot, I suspect AI cannot solve like 100% use cases. There may be a 10%, 15% cases, boundary cases that AI system cannot very nicely deal with, and those boundary cases may actually like have huge risk to the downstream kind of like a code or software engineering and the sequence. And I think maybe that's the reason why till today those systems are not deployed or widely adopted yet. But I can also share some insights with you that my collaborator inside IBM Research, we have already assembled a multi-team like research effort strategy to move forward with this direction. So the end goal is definitely trying to use AI, if not fully generate a code sequence from scratch. At least it should be able to translate those historical code like Pascal, right, code into a more modern code like Python with some human guidance. If a human look at the Pascal sequence, say, oh, this is reading database tables. With that guiding sequence and the Pascal input code, it can do very well with this code translation task. And this is a huge opportunity, financial opportunity for companies, because it's hard to believe that many banks and airlines and governments are still using lots of Pascal and obsolete language, and no engineers can actually continue to maintain them anymore. But thank you.
Any more questions? Go ahead.
First, I have to say I really love your work about ideas argument and how to utilize structural method this kind of tasks which traditionally most people use like transformer or the like very heavy models, and this is I think this is much less rigid than the current models. And the question I want to ask is about the feature you just created a few slides ago for the architecture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for the different code ES embeddings, are they like for the different codes or for the graph has different timestamp?
Oh, they are for different code. So we have one. Sorry. The question from the audience is particularly detailed structural design, right? So for this code ASD embeddings, are they from different time sequence, or are they from different code cells, right? So here, what we are showing is from different code cells from the same timestamp.
Okay, so for each EST graph, we have to see the entire process differently, right? How the graph looks like.
Yes, true. Yeah.
Do you think it can be extended in a way that the graph we can utilize some control graphs and get some capability within the whole working of graph from like very fast.
Oh, that's actually a very interesting thought, right? So I think it's actually doable. But so in this work, when we were designing the structure, we were primarily trying to solve the unique challenge as we observed from, analyzing those notebook people writing their code next to each other, right? So the primary use case we are targeting is once there are many, data scientists or some data scientists, they write a code, they want to share it, but it doesn't have any documentation, so that it's not very easy for other human beings to read it, right? So that's why we assumed that the code sequence are already there. But what you're suggesting, right? So imagine that the code is not finished yet, right? So then can we predict what the following code sequence could be? I think that's something that we can also leverage a similar graph neural network structure to achieve. But thank you.
Well, thanks. Are there any more questions?
Oh, yes, there's a question from the online chat. The question is, concretely speaking, all of the human-centered AI work presented here are code documentation generation. So the concrete answer to that is yes. So that's the only work that I have time to present to show you the full loop of human-centered AI research endeavor. But we do have various other works in other contexts. I don't have time to show you, right? So for example, we have these AutoML systems built so that domain experts can directly use such graphical user interface to generate their model without writing any line of code, right? So this has become an IBM product. And also simply click that button, we can generate a full documented notebook for this particular model that the user like, right? Something like this. So this is a fully AI generated notebook, executable, so that if user execute this code, they will get exactly the graphical user interface showing them the metric. So this is something many companies have already bought from IBM because they don't have enough data scientists to deal with their data science task, and also because most of their tasks do not need a kind of like a highly trained data scientist to do, right? Yeah, we have various other things like scientific paper summarization, human-centered AI experience for AI algorithms. Just to, but because of time, I only have time to describe that one particular project. But if any of you are interested in all these other projects, feel free to send me emails and we can chat more. Good.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. Let's give the speaker another round.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much for all the online participants.